Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Pondering. I am your host, Pastor Joel Rissinger, and this is the show, of course, where we ponder all things. We think them through. We do not check our brains at the door. And then we talk about them. We talk about politics, religion, money, sex, food, you name it, all kinds of stuff. We have fun, we goof off, and sometimes we get very serious. But listen, all of it is done for a purpose. In fact, we unabashedly, unashamedly, unapologetically say we do this. We speak and talk about these things from a Christian paradigm, from a biblical worldview. And listen, we hope that others will agree, but you can disagree and we still love you. In fact, you can chime in and disagree, and we'll let it happen. We just ask that you not be disagreeable. We don't name call. We don't argue emotion over fact. There's certain rules, I suppose, in that sense, but they're reasonable, and we just love to have you join us. You can contribute to the show like Susie just did, chiming in. Good morning, Susie, by just typing into the live stream here on Facebook. For those of you listening via podcast, that's facebook.com/Pondering Radio, the Pondering Radio page of Facebook. You can type into the live stream, or you can just leave comments on the page anytime you like. You can also call in and leave a message for us at 860-500-7163, and I've got to remember to go grab that phone in about 30 minutes or so. We're going to have a couple guests with us today. In a little while, we'll have Gary Byron, my former sidekick on the Pondering Radio show when it was on the air as opposed to being a podcast / Facebook venue. Gary is now the morning host along with Brad Davis on WDRC here in the greater Hartford area, throughout Connecticut on that network, and he's going to join us, talk about that gig a little bit and some of his experiences. And of course, Gary is a former member of the House of Representatives here in Connecticut, the State House, and we may get into some of that too. We'll see how much time we have. And then about 8:45-ish, we're going to be joined by Tom Hansen, the official and amazing historian, and of course, beyond history, he is the news editor for the Pondering Radio show. Tom's been a newsman, beat reporter, editor, etc. for over 40 years, and so he brings with him a wealth of knowledge and experience as a Christian news reporter, which is, some would say, is an oxymoron, but not in Tom's case, it's not. So we'll have him with us too. Good morning to Ed. Good morning to Jerry. We've got the whole country covered now between Maine and California. You guys are awesome. Jerry's got his sunglasses on and his meme. Good deal. Ed doesn't need them up in Maine, probably. No, I'm kidding. It's a beautiful day, actually, here in New England. I hope that's true in Maine. Here in Connecticut, it's blue sky, not too hot, really comfortable. Coda's with me out here on the deck. Maybe I can show you Coda. Let's see if this reverse the image, and I can show you that he is, in fact, joining us here on the show, doing his watchdog duty, making sure no one gets up the stairs to get at me here on the deck as we do the show outdoors today. So, good morning. Oh, wow. Corwin Fabian, welcome aboard. Nice to have you with us. We encourage you to tell your friends, neighbors, and complete strangers about the program and get them to chime in. We also are available on demand 24/7, 365 via podcast on just about every podcast venue known to man, and some that aren't known to man. Take advantage of that too. We're on Spreaker. We're on iHeartRadio. I don't know. We're all over the place, and we enjoy hearing from you in those venues too. And actually, those venues have an advantage. You don't actually have to see me, because I've been told I have a better radio face than I do TV. So I told you about our guest. Let me get into the topic I want to really hit today, time permitting, and that is the question of Christian responsibility in our current political world. I saw a tweet this week from Ed Stetzer, and I need to probably give a disclaimer here. If you don't know Ed Stetzer, he's an amazing man of God. I had a chance to meet him and hear him speak, and I've read a lot of his stuff. I follow his tweets, thus I saw the one this week that kind of set me off. Ed is probably the guru for church planting. He wrote a book that, second to the Bible, is probably the most influential, positive, effective, and proven book on how to plant a church, start a new church, and make it grow. He is brilliant with a capital B. He is also kind of a church growth expert. He's become known not just as a church planting expert, but as sort of a man who truly understands the state of the modern evangelical church. So you'll see him interviewed sometimes on cable news and other places because he is an expert. He does understand his stuff when it comes to the church. By the way, Susie says, good morning, Coda. There you go, bud. Jerry says it's still dark here. And Ed says it's beautiful at work outside in Maine. 57 out, 73 inside. Well, that's good. I'm glad your heater's working. But listen, back to Ed. So I love Ed. I think he's a great guy. But nobody's perfect. And he tweeted something this week. I couldn't disagree with more if you paid me. And I want to share the tweet. And I'll be fair. I'll tell you what I think he meant, which is probably okay. But I can also tell you how it was perceived and how most people will take it and what it represents as a danger to us as modern Christians here in the United States. Ed tweeted that if you mix politics and religion, you'll end up with politics. Let me say it again. If you mix politics and religion, you'll end up with politics. Now, what he meant was that we shouldn't go around saying Jesus is a Republican, for example. I'm an independent, partly because I didn't want anyone to think that to be part of a church I pastored, you had to be a Democrat or a Republican or a Green Party member or anything else. But the other reason I'm independent, and personally this is true, apart from my church work, is because I'm a conservative and I felt like both parties had abandoned me and people like me. And I didn't want to be perceived to be supporting a platform I couldn't support in good conscience. Or that I had to just because I had an R next to it or whatever. And I agree with that idea that we don't want to make it seem like that you have to be part of a certain party, you have to belong to a political party in order to be a Christian, or that Jesus would, promote a party, because he wouldn't. And I agree with that. But I'm going to tell you how, and perhaps that's how Ed meant it. Probably he did. But there's another way it's taken, and it's a very dangerous way, and I would say it's the dominant way that statement, his tweet, will be taken. When Ed says, if you mix politics and religion, you end up with politics, the average Christian says, yeah, that's right, yeah, that's why I don't pay any attention to all this stuff in the news, that's why I don't talk about politics, that's why I don't even vote, and by the way, it's not just Jehovah's Witnesses who won't even fly the American flag, by the way. Because they believe that when Jesus said, my kingdom's not of this world, that meant we can't be part of any other kingdom. Of course, they live here, they're citizens, and they benefit from it. But anyway, it's a side note. But some people don't, even evangelicals, don't vote because, hey, I don't want to mix politics and religion. I don't know anything to do with it. I know anything about it. I want to hear about it. And we all, like giant ostriches, metaphorically, because ostriches don't really do this, but nonetheless, we stick our heads in the sand, and I love to joke that when you stick your head in the sand, you leave an awfully big target exposed. So, we hear no evil, right? We see no evil, we speak no evil, and we go about our business. And the result is what we see all around us. The constant, consistent, and ever-accelerating degradation of our culture, our society, our moral values, our basic way of life, and yes, even our faith. Jerry says, I know your staff read his book, Christians in the Age of Outrage. Yes. And there's some good things in the book, but there's some other things in there, again, that I would say, look out, be careful. And here's what I mean. We live in a very unique nation. A nation founded on principles and structured such that it is of the people, by the people, and for the people. At least that's what it was supposed to be. A representative republic where we send people through our votes to represent us and what we believe, to maintain the values and founding principles of this country so that we can all benefit. And through that, which I would argue was a God-given, blessed structure, because the founders were Christians who knew the Bible and read it and used it in creating that structure, that we've seen the result over the last 200 plus years has been the greatest nation on earth. And in the history of mankind, there's never been a nation that had more opportunity, blessing, and freedom of religion, and thus the ability to send missionaries all around the world and see more salvations and more growth in the kingdom of God than at any time in human history. But that nation of the people, by the people, for the people creates a unique responsibility that I think Christians shirk if we're not careful. Well, we're shirking it. It's happening big time. And that is this. We're in charge. We're the leaders. Good morning to Fred, by the way. Welcome aboard, my friend. We're responsible. If it's of the people, by the people, for the people. I heard a great clip this week, and I wish I knew the details of the context, because I didn't. It was just a random clip at the opening of a talk show. But it was a gentleman testifying before Congress. It had to do with immigration. I don't know if he was an immigration officer or he was just a concerned citizen in a border town. I'm not sure. But he was criticizing Congress in a hearing for not passing laws and enforcing the laws we have to protect our nation from illegal immigration. And they were trying to shut him down. Now, I don't know whether he talked too long or they just didn't like what he was saying, but the chairman of the committee was trying to get him to be silent. And she even started yelling at him at one point. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was pretty close to this. He said, "Wait a minute. You work for me." He said, "I'm a taxpayer. You work for me." And she shut up, actually, at least for a moment. And I sat there applauding. Now, we should show respect to our Congress people or congressmen and women. I agree with that. I always do. I pray for them. We should. We're commanded to. But it's true that if it's truly a nation of the people, by the people, for the people, we're in charge. So as Christians who are blessed to be in this nation and benefit from it, well, I don't know, in many ways, like tax exemption for our churches, like freedom of religion so we can proselytize and share the gospel, send missionaries all around the world, be wealthy as all get out so we can afford to pay for missions all around the world, where we are 100 times more well off financially than the average Christian anywhere on the planet. We have a responsibility. The responsibility is to maintain the biblical, moral Christian values that were the foundation of this nation to begin with. And if our mindset is, well, I can't talk about politics. Ooh, no. Can't listen to the news. I can't see what's going on. I don't want to know about it. The result is inaction. The result is constant drifting away from the truth, a constant drifting toward socialist, communist, fascist, atheistic culture and society, which is exactly what the liberal progressive left is pushing toward. They celebrate people like Fidel Castro. They celebrate some of the great quote-unquote socialist countries around the world and are willfully ignorant or just don't, I don't know whether they actually believe that they can do better, but they don't talk about places like Venezuela or communist China, where I've traveled and studied, or North Korea or North Vietnam, or any number of other nations that have tried this atheistic, socialist, ultimately fascist, communist approach and been devastated. And Christians in those countries have been slaughtered, have been locked up, have been silenced in many ways, in many cases. And so I think God's people need to stop compartmentalizing, number one, where our faith is in a little box on Sunday. There it is, all nice and safe on Sunday. And then, pardon the expression, we live like hell Monday through Saturday. It's not just about our lifestyle. Our faith needs to guide, direct, influence, even, yes, control everything we do. Listen, if I'm in Christ, and the life I now live, as Paul said in Galatians 2:20, I live through the Son of God who gave himself for me, then what Jesus stands for and believes should dictate everything I say, think, and do. And therefore, if I'm in a nation where I'm considered a leader because it's of the people, by the people, for the people, and we have a democratic republic where I can have a voice, I can speak up, I can write and blog, I can vote, I need to do it and stand for the things that are true. I can't separate those things from myself. If I am called to be in political office, I can't separate my faith from my political function. Now, some say, well, yeah, but you can't force people to believe what you believe. Exactly. Listen, God's all about free will. If he wasn't, the cross would never have happened. Do you understand that, Christian? If God the Father, Son, and Spirit were not interested in free will, free moral agency, there'd never have been a need for the cross, because Adam and Eve would never have sinned and no one else, because God would have forced them not to. But he gave us free will because he wants kids who love him because they've chosen to, not been forced to. And the cross was the necessary antidote, if you will, cure or solution, maybe a better word, to our sin problem, the cross and the empty tomb. And so God's all about free will. He would never want a leader to come into power and force people to believe. But would he want that leader to lead based on the values that are in his word? Yeah. And how could we not? How can we be a Christian leader voting, let alone leading in an actual office, and support abortion on demand at any time during pregnancy and even after birth? And how could we not understand that that ultimately leads to genocide? Where as soon as we're able to say we can kill a baby anytime we want, as long as we decide we don't want it, then there is no limit. And in every case in human history where that thinking, that atheistic, communistic thinking, starting with socialism, but really communism is just the under the engine behind socialism, what's resulted has been genocide. Well, the elderly, they don't contribute anymore. Let's get rid of them. No more nursing homes. Just shoot them all. Or maybe we'll do it. We'll do it. I love the term. I just lost it. But we'll do it in a gentle, kind way. A civilized way. We'll just lethally inject them, and that'll be it. That's it. And we won't have to feed them and care for them, and they won't get in the way. We don't have to dodge wheelchairs as we're walking around. You say, well, that's crazy, Pastor Joel. No, study history. Not crazy at all. The other thing that's not crazy at all is to say, well, we don't really like the Asian people. They come in, they buy a property, they serve fatty foods in their restaurants. We got to get rid of them. Or we'll lock them all up, or we'll just segregate them, et cetera, et cetera. We can go right down the list. We talk about the Jews being exterminated in World War II, and they were by Hitler, who was a fascist and a socialist. But it wasn't just the idea of the Jews. They weren't the only ones he took out. He took out blacks. He took out people who were handicapped, people who were mentally ill. Anyone he didn't think fit the Aryan ideal, he would wipe them out. The result of amoral, a society absence of morals, pursuing a socialist, communist agenda, a fascist agenda, driven by human nature, and that's the problem with socialism. It ignores human nature so that people in government maintain power and no one else does, and then the people in government take all the money and the riches, and everyone else suffers. Look at Venezuela. As soon as we ignore human nature and we move in that direction and we stick our heads in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist, we are vulnerable to the same results, which are devastating. And I just think we have to be careful, Christians. Why we do this program. We want people to engage, think things through, consider the facts, vote intelligently, speak up. We don't have to be rude, nasty, annoying. That doesn't work anyway. But we should be able to express with love the truth around the water cooler at work, on our, Facebook pages, whatever, and not shy away because, we can't mix politics and religion. I don't think, and we can argue about terms. Some Christians get all bent out of shape by the use of the word religion even. It's about a relationship, not a religion. I've said that, and it's true. But when I use the term in this context, I'm meaning our faith. Our faith should dictate everything, especially how we vote and what we stand for. Jerry says that verbal exchange was between former ICE Director Thomas Homan and Representative Pramila Jayapal from Washington, the Democrat from Washington. Thank you, Jerry. I didn't hear the whole thing, so I wasn't sure who. I just heard the ending and went, oh, yeah, amen. Corwin says, do your own research. Amen. Do not swallow, right? The ex-director of Border Security. And that's true, because I've heard, now that you say that, I've heard him before, and he's amazing. He talks about what's really happening at the border. And guys, listen, I I don't want to be sounding alarmist or conspiratorial or wacko. I've listened to the facts. I've read a number of things, heard details, including the transcript of the actual phone call between the president and the president of Ukraine this past week. The call didn't happen this past week, but I heard the entire transcript this week. We are in the midst of the most blatant, dangerous, I would say, just wildly conspiratorial attempted coup, a cold war, because there's no bullets flying, that has ever occurred in our nation. We are at war, verbally, mentally, philosophically. There are two sides pulling in opposite directions, and something's going to snap. On the one side, we've got the progressive, liberal, atheistic agenda, promoting abortion on demand at any time, promoting open borders where people just flood in. And I heard, what is her name? Dr. Martin Luther King's granddaughter, I believe. She's written several books. She was talking in an interview in Springfield this week about the reason that she's opposed to open borders, even though she's a strong Christian teacher. And her rationale, I thought, was powerful. She said, letting people flow into the country illegally, without the right resources, without any sense of support, without legal access to different structures and programs that we have in this nation, we are putting them at risk, we are harming them, and we should stop it. And one of the points she made, which I'm very familiar with, having been involved in supporting efforts to stop sex trafficking here in Connecticut, is that many of these kids, in particular, that get moved across the border, are thrown into slavery and sex trafficking. And no one can stop them. We don't even know they're here. They've come illegally. They're just here wandering around, and someone grabs them up, and they're now under a pimp in some hotel, moved from place to place. And this happens a lot, not just in one or two cases. People are oblivious to it because we don't want to hear about it, but it happens. And her point was, we need a way of properly vetting people and allowing them into this nation. And when they do, when they have a legitimate reason to come in, we should let them come in, and then they have access to the help and support they need to get their lives together and move forward and be safe and so forth. And she was quoting, statistics and, numbers of thousands of kids and young people and adults too have been trafficked and abused and so forth because they don't exist. They're just here, and there's no recourse for them. They're not going to go to the police because they don't want to be deported. It's a frightening, ever-increasing problem, and her point was open borders contribute to it. You can't do that. And I hadn't even considered some of what she said. I thought it was phenomenal. Very good. But, the platform on the one side is promoting abortion on demand, open borders, socialistic policy, which really means government power and control and all freedom, in essence, taken away from people, ultimately. Many cases an atheistic, anti-Christian platform or perspective, that you can't talk about Jesus, you can't mention faith, that if you stand against, for example, gay marriage, you stand for biblical values of sexuality, that's hate speech, and you're dangerous and you need to be silenced. All of that stuff and more is pulling in this direction, and in the opposite direction is this conservative Christian, sometimes Christian, not always, but conservative, fundamental moral position of saying, no, wait, we're constitutionalists. We believe we should maintain our Constitution. I mean, the whole idea of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness being God-given is the basis of our nation. We can't throw that out. We can't reject that. This side wants to renounce the Constitution and start over. This side saying, no, it was good. It is good. It's worked. It's worked better than any other government in the history of mankind. Why are we throwing it out? These two extremes are pulling against each other. And I believe that this latest attempt to get rid of President Trump is nothing more, and I could develop this. We don't have time. And if any of you want to do it one-on-one, call me. 860-500-7163 is our number. You can leave a message 24/7, 365. 860-500-7163. I'd be happy to talk through it. But you look at the facts of what we know for the last 3 years, there's no question that there's been an illegal, immoral attempt to overthrow our president. And the reason He stands for constitutional values. He stands for conservative teaching. He supports freedom of religion. He is opposed to abortion, etc., etc. And they want him out. It's not about him and his tweets or his gruff nature. It's about his policies. They want him out. And they are doing anything and everything to get him out. And as you study beneath the surface of the headlines and the babbling on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, what you realize is there's a coup. They're attempting a coup. They're attempting the overthrow of a sitting president. They are doing things that are illegal and then basically accusing him of the same things they've just done. And again, we could prove that with facts, not just opinion, not just, conjecture, but actual facts of what we know has happened in the last 3 years in the order they've happened. And what you come away with is a frightening realization that we are at war. It's a Cold War, thankfully, I guess. We have to have one. And God's people need to stand up. God's people need to vote, speak up, stand for what's true and what's right, and not go into this ostrich head in the sand mentality that, well, we can't mix politics and religion, so we're just going to be quiet over here and ignore it all. I think God's given us responsibility and opportunity as part of a nation that's of the people, run by a government of the people, for the people, by the people. That's us, such that we have. And listen, we might stand up and speak up and push back and still lose. Could happen. If that happens, God knows that, and we'll still be blessed for standing up for what he teaches and what is true. But if we don't stand up and we just sit by and either pretend it's not there or let it happen, we're no different than the Buddhist monks who in Thailand can be seen at times sitting in the public square chanting and meditating as girls are being dragged off into the sex trade by pimps. I've seen pictures of that, where the girl's fighting and the guy's dragging her across this, and the monk's sitting there, pacifism sounds good, but it doesn't mesh well with Jesus, who overthrew the money changers' tables and got a whip and chased all the animals and people out of the temple, does it? I think we need to consider sometimes our twisted version of Christianity. But reality is, guys, we have a responsibility to speak up, to stand up. If we do so and we prevent the ultimate disaster that we're headed toward, well, or at least forestall it for a period of time, praise God, and we can get more people saved and do more work in the meantime. If we fail, at least we tried. We did the right thing, and we'll stand before Christ and hear him say, well done, good and faithful servant. But to sit back and say, well, I can't mix politics and religion, and just watch it, that, my friends, is, look at the history, Old Testament, New Testament. When leaders allow or promote things that lead to destruction of the innocent, God deals with them harshly. And I don't want to be in that place. So, heavy stuff, but I think worthy of consideration in the midst of all that's happening in our world. Deanne says, love everyone, agree to disagree, live by what the Word of God says. That's right. We can agree to disagree, but when we're dealing with truths such as the value of life, the right to life for unborn children, for example, when we're dealing with truths such as if a man does not work, neither shall he eat, and we're dealing with actual biblical truths, we need to stand for them. And we can agree to disagree in the sense that we're not going to yell and scream and beat up somebody, but we can't back down on the truth. We can't say, well, I guess that works for me, but not for you. No, this is the Word of God. This is exactly how we're meant to function. And if we're moving away from that in a political direction that rejects that truth, we need to stand up, speak up, and vote to maintain the truth. And I don't think saying, well, can't mix politics and religion, so I'm going to stay over here in the sidelines. I don't think that's an option for God's people. I really don't. We can love people and think they're full of baloney. I'm full of baloney sometimes. I hope you love me. Jerry says, Alveda King. Yes, she's the one. Staunch defender of President Trump. Yes, she is. And the reason is because of policy, because of what he believes. The beginning of the end will be when you get a chip in your hand and roll out of the 5G. Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that I'm more concerned about false ideas, philosophies, and principles and values being promoted and encouraged and sort of allowed by Christians who are remaining silent than I am about physical chips, to be honest. Elizabeth, welcome. I'm going to go. I've got to apologize, folks, for carrying you with me, but I've got to grab the phone. Yes, I am not. I might have missed this. I got so wound up here. Oh, no, maybe not. No, I think we're good. So we'll probably hear from him. And then from Tom Hansen here in just a moment. Let me just double check one thing, folks. If I lose you, do not adjust your sets. I'll be right back here. All right, stay with me here, folks. I apologize for the break. It's one of the downsides of not having commercials. You can't do some of these things on the fly without breaking into your broadcast to do it. Okay, here we go. Let's make sure everything. All right, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. I had to hold or pause in order to make that contact. So hopefully Gary will be calling in here in just a moment. I don't think we missed him, but I know that he is poor guy. He gets up at some unearthly hour now to do the morning show. It's crazy. You know, he's on the air by what, 6, I think it is. And so this is the one day he gets to sleep in. And he's like, yeah, okay, for you, I'll do it. You know, he normally would want to crash for a little while. So he may have overslept his alarm. If he did, that's fine. We'll catch him perhaps next week. So let me catch up on some. Oh, here we go. This may be him. Let's see. Is that Dr. Gary Byron, the man, the legend? Yes. Nice. Oh, very nice. Was that yours original? I, I am well. Are you awake? Are you conscious? This is like, you know, one day to sleep in. I was just telling him, and you choose to come on the air with us. We are very blessed. You the man. You you the man. So tell us about the show. I want to give you some free promo airtime here. I mean, and people can even hear it live stream, right? They can get it online even if they're not in Connecticut, correct? Wow. Cool. Nice. Fantastic. Susie says hello, by the way. She's chimed in here. We're live on Facebook as well as our podcast venues galore. So that's cool. So tell us about it. So it's you and Brad Davis, what, 6 to 9 a.m., right? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. A good chunk. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Well, and people are interested. There's a lot going on in our country as we've been sharing and discussing this morning a little bit. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember a program you and I did a year or two ago. We were talking about, how the sausage is made. Um, yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's kind of scary. It's like I always joke about that because when you go watch sausage being made or hot dogs, you may not want to eat them ever again. And sometimes you look under the covers of what happens in our government, and you think, oh, yeah, but it's craziness. And unfortunately, I think, and you guys were talking about this the other day, you and Brad, and I think you had a guest on too. I don't remember who it was, but you were talking about how um, it's so amazing that in our state we continue to vote for people who tax us more and more and more, who deceive and flat out lie to us at times about what their intentions are, um, and we're having more and more businesses leave, more and more people move out. We're struggling more and more to care for those who are truly in need, because I know you were very passionate about that when you served, because you served on committees that were responsible to help people who were hurting, um, and yet we turn around and vote for them again. We'll complain, we'll argue, we'll leave, we'll move out of state, and then yeah, sure, sure, yeah. Except for those nasty Republicans. Yeah, you're right. I mean, just I'm just kidding. Sure. Yeah, sure. Yep. Right. Sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. No. No. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have to pass it in order. You have to quote Nancy Pelosi on a federal level. You got to pass the bill so you can find out what's in it, don't you? Isn't that how it works? Yeah. 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 Right. Well, one of the things
to
that
come back later, and
yeah,
say,
sure.
oh, well, we don't know what was in it. It's just, how do you not know what's in it? You wrote it.
I mean, I was thinking about that when you were talking about the budget this week and saying that the Republicans didn't even get invited into the discussion with the current budget.
Right.
And so, in that case, you guys have a plausible.
Minority Leader Len Fasano, House Minority Leader, my former leader
Yep.
in the House of Representatives, declared this. We had them both on just this past week. And that's what they said. They said, I mean, it's one thing to be invited in and just be told no. But at least you're at the table. And you can go back to your, constituency and say, hey, yeah, they shot down everything that we brought up.
We tried.
They weren't even invited into the room.
Right.
Pretty sad.
That's not democracy. That's oligarchy or something. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Republicans do represent a good portion of the constituency in the state of Connecticut.
Right.
Granted, not the majority, but still a good portion nevertheless.
Right. No, it's scary stuff, and I wonder what it's going to take. I thought, and I think you made this point the other day, the last election, I thought we'd had enough. Enough is enough. Enough people have fled. Enough businesses have closed. Enough people are complaining. This is it. We're gonna see a change, not just in the governor's seat, but in terms of a conservative majority, maybe in the House, and throughout the legislature. And it didn't happen. And you wonder, what will it take? How many people have to leave? How high does unemployment have to go? How many folks have to see their property values decrease and their taxes increase before we truly say we're going to stop voting for folks who just tax and spend? I don't know, Gary.
I mean, not only do we not retain some of our seats, I mean, we lost them. That's just so.
Yeah. Right. No, I know. Corwin Fabian says hello, by the way. Good morning to you. And
Good morning, buddy.
Susie.
I miss you there, my friend.
Susie says we're not Detroit-like enough yet to vote conservative in Connecticut.
Union pensions, okay, and not for nothing, but they're on their way. They're actually not on their way. Yeah, they're well on their way to prosperity.
Yeah.
Now, granted, keep in mind, Detroit is much larger of a city than Hartford.
Right. But it's.
Granted, I mean, Detroit's not a capital city like Hartford is.
Right.
I believe the capital of Michigan is Lansing, if I'm not mistaken. But,
Right.
But it's still a larger city by square miles than Hartford. But if they can do it, a state cannot declare bankruptcy, but cities and municipalities can.
Right.
So it's an option for the city of Hartford, but it's an option that Luke Ronan doesn't want to go down. Doesn't want to go down that path.
Well, no, and honestly, our problems are much bigger than Hartford, right? I mean, it would be,
However, was it the money that we're giving them every year?
Well, that's true. That comes out of everybody's pocket, doesn't it?
20 years, $500 million
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah.
For the next, that doesn't help neither, though.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Hey, we're almost out of time. I know Tom's going to be calling in to do a news update. Give a plug again for. Yeah, well, give another plug for the show, Gary. Where, when, how can people catch you so they can stay up with what you're doing? Because it's good stuff every weekday morning. It's great stuff. Sure. That's amazing.
Legend. Even the word legend isn't large enough. He's an icon.
Right.
And classic rock full time on WCCC. That one day I'd be the co-host of the Brad Davis show every morning.
Right.
I would have said, "You're crazy. How would I even get to that?" That's just everybody who works in radio. They're doing full time on a morning show.
Right.
What can we tell you? He has lived up to his legacy.
Yes.
He is the most gracious, charming, down-to-earth, friendly, caring, and giving individual that I've ever met.
That's awesome.
He is completely ego-free.
Yep.
And it is not just an honor, but a privilege to be working side by side with him each and every weekday morning. So
awesome.
a little shout out to my partner, and actually my friend, Brad Davis, who, by the way, I brought to the Waterfall Festival last Saturday here in Newington. He showed up with me. We spent the full afternoon there. But anyhow, he's on weekday mornings. We go from 5 in the morning till 9 in the morning, but we're live from 6 till 9, Monday through Friday on WDRC. It's Talk of Connecticut, 1360 AM and 103.3 FM. So we're on AM and FM, and we've got a couple of affiliate stations. We got an AM station in Meriden, WMMW, WSNG up in Torrington. So we've got a couple of stations, and actually I think we're getting one more FM station that's going to be simulcasting us as well every morning.
Awesome.
This show, Joel, is really catching on fire. The guests that I'm able to bring in with my connections, and you have calls. That's the backbone of the whole show, is that we are a live call-in show.
That's right.
It's participation-oriented. We want to hear from you. So make sure that you do call us WDRC in the morning.
Awesome. Good stuff, Gary. Thank you for taking time out, getting up early. I know we're going to see each other later tonight, but be blessed, and let's do this again sometime, okay?
Would love to. I'd love to have you on our electric calling sometime. I know you're busy at that time in the morning.
No, I can try to call in. I'll try to come up with something, worthwhile to say. Who knows? We'll see.
Well, I miss Pondering. I look forward to our dinner later this evening and Pondering. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you bet. All right. We'll see you soon. Thanks again.
You got it.
All right. That was Gary Byron of Brad Davis and Gary Byron in the Morning, WDRC, a good friend, former State House of Representatives member and leader here in Connecticut, and appreciate him taking time out to join us. Tom is calling in. I know, Tom, if you're listening, you can call now. We'll bring you right up. Sorry for the delay. Let me catch up on some comments. Corwin says they can't get Trump out because he can't be bought. Yeah, he doesn't need the money, does he? And he's working for free, which you never hear on ABC or CNN or anybody else. He doesn't take a salary. Susie says, I'm the left's nightmare, a Christian, disabled Republican woman. According to them, Trump is trying to ruin my life, but they want to, quote, take care of me. True that. And I think I've caught up with everybody else here. Yep. All right, let's get Tom on and to give us the latest in news, as well as perhaps a little history. Tom Hansen, is that you, my friend?
Sure. Good morning to all of our fellow ponderers. It was so good to hear Gary again. I missed those days when all three of us were talking on AM radio. So I'm happy that sounds like he's got a great show on.
He does. He's doing great, and he's with a living legend, as he said. Susie says, good morning. Gary said to make sure to say hi to you as well, Tom, and it's a pleasure to have you on. You are a legend yourself, 40-plus years in the news business, and we are very privileged to have you on the Pondering Show.
Thank you so much for doing this. My friends up in Connecticut and wide.
That's right.
I'm still impressed with the technology. We've seen a lot of things in our history.
Oh, yeah, a lot's changed. It's amazing. I think back to when I was busting my butt writing, for the newspaper in college and occasionally for the paper and the magazines that you oversaw. And, and we had a decent readership at times, especially at your level. College paper was just a few hundred, maybe 1,000. I don't know what the distribution was. But you think about the potential now through Facebook, through iHeartRadio, through Spreaker, through all these other venues that we get to be on now. It's astounding. It really is. And the longevity, because once the stuff's out there, in YouTube and, other places, and we advertise through Twitter and all that. I mean, it's out there, and people can find stuff, and they do. I'll get comments on things I wrote months ago or said. So Yeah, I think it's amazing how it's changed. I think in many ways for the better. In some ways, maybe not, because like anything else, it can be used for good or evil. I grew up using guns to have fun and to hunt and to eat, and I realized that guns can also be used to kill people and do evil things. I don't think the answer is to get rid of the guns. I think the answer is to change the hearts of men. I think the same way about Facebook, Twitter, any other venue, any podcast venue. It could be used for evil. The goal is for us as believers to help use it for good and help others do the same. But anyway, hey, let's see what's on your list for the week. We got 10, 15 minutes here. What do you have on the docket for us?
I think the main thing, national thing.
Yeah.
Conversion law, voice of martyrs request intercession.
Wow.
This is a nationwide law that you essentially can't convert to Christianity. I mean, India is a largely Hindu nation, and they're making it illegal to convert. I mean, they do have Muslims there too, but I received that, and I also received a message from somebody who's in the church we were in, Michael Hubert. He sent me a text message saying things are getting rough. Please pray for us.
Where is he? Is he's in India somewhere stationed?
Yeah, and I forget. There's something. On my website that just passion thing for him saying pray for us.
Yeah.
This ties in with President Modi of India, who is apparently a staunch conservative Hindu, came to America and had a big rally, I think, in Houston, and the president welcomed him. And it's challenging when I love President Trump, President Pence, but when somebody who's really going after Christians comes to the country, it's just a dicey situation. I hope they put pressure on him, but it's just
yeah.
It's challenging to be president. He's got to be president of all America, and I really appreciate what he's doing.
Yeah, you bring up an issue that doesn't get much press, and that is that we are the only nation, really. I mean, and we could argue about the British, former British Empire, and the Commonwealth countries, parts of Western Europe. Okay, I'm down with all that, but we are the dominant country in terms of freedom of religion, promoting it and protecting it. And I think some of these guys, these liberals, who want to pattern us or have us pattern ourselves after these other nations, do not realize that you can't coexist with faiths that believe that you need to be destroyed. And I'm not just talking about Muslim nations. As you've just pointed out, here's a Hindu nation that wants to wipe out Christianity and make it illegal to become one. That the coexist bumper stickers, I'm sorry, don't want to offend anybody, but they illustrate absolute ignorance, complete insanity. You cannot the only one that promotes coexistence is Christianity. And the reason we do is because, and I know that there's been aberrations of that throughout the ages, and I've argued that with liberals. Oh, well, Christians tried to force this, and Christians did that, and you've got the fight in Ireland between the Catholics and the Protestants. I get it. Those are not biblical Christian values that are being promoted in those cases. But wherever Christianity is truly being promoted and lived out, there is the opportunity for freedom of faith and political position, etc., because we know that Paul said it's for freedom that Christ has set you free. Stand firm, then let no one take it from you. And our Constitution was founded on that principle, among others. So we are the ones who will say, okay, we don't agree with you, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, Taoist, but we will allow you to be here and practice what you do as long as you're not persecuting others. Nobody else does that, guys. It just doesn't happen. And the communist, liberal, socialists are the worst. Communism and atheism is really a religion People don't recognize that, but it is. But I think this is a good reminder that we need to protect and uphold the values that this nation was founded on, because if you want religious freedom, and people can have a choice to believe, which is what God wants. He wants them to choose him, not be forced into him, obeying him or following him, but to choose him. You need to have a Christian foundation for that nation. History proves that. So, anyway.
Yeah.
What else you got there, my friend?
President Trump had an amazing interview with
Yes. Yes.
Stand up for life. He gave an amazing speech to the whole UN. Just really said what he thought about everybody, good, bad, or indifferent. And it was so good. And then the Democratic Party had planned to hit these
Yep.
back in Ukraine for like 5 o'clock that afternoon.
Yep.
Would do all this with kindness.
Yes.
And it's disgusting. I really feel for Donald Trump because he was rich, had a good marriage, had a good life, didn't have to do this.
No.
And has endured such abuse. I mean, he could have just enjoyed his rich life. Like I heard a tape with him from October of 20.
Yes, I heard that too.
Right from yesterday. It's like, wow, he didn't have to do this. And I really appreciate him. I pray for him and like this every day.
I truly believe that he just looked at globalism, for example, and other issues, socialism being promoted in this country, and globalism, universally. Certainly President Obama pushed globalism and the surrender of U.S. Sovereignty in many cases, even our military being under UN jurisdiction in many cases. And President Trump looked at that and said, this is a formula for disaster. We're going to lose everything we value, everything we stand for. Is he a fighter? Yes. Is he gruff and rough? Yes. Does he say things that are blunt and even maybe rude and inappropriate at times? Yes. But is he fighting for what the principles, beliefs, and policies that made this nation great? He is. And the fruit is I guess the proof is in the pudding, as they say. But I think you're right on about that. And we don't have time to get into it, but this whole Ukrainian thing, if you've listened to the phone call transcript, which I have, word for word, of the president's call to the president of Ukraine, you realize that what's being said in the media, what's being promoted by the Democrats in Congress, is absolute garbage, nonsense. And it is, and I say that as an independent. I'm not a Republican. I don't say it just because I like the president's policies. Evaluating the transcript, he did not do or say what they're saying he did at all. And it's another attempt at a silent coup, maybe not so silent, but a coup to replace him. And again, God's people have to stand up, not just for the president, but for what we believe in. And you've said that many times on this show, Tom. I got into a diatribe on that earlier because I believe you're right. So, quick history. We got a minute or so left. What you got? Anything historical for us today?
Manning to that Christian in the fight. Our side's not perfect, but the other side is insane. Things from history. This date in 1066, William Duke of Normandy invades England. On this date in 1542, Spanish explorer Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo discovers San Diego. This date in 1781, George Washington begins the siege at the Battle of Yorktown. And most important of all, on this date, 1968, Cardinal pitcher Bob Gibson broke Grover Cleveland Alexander's ERA record with a 1.2 ERA.
Nice. Hey, I am happy right now. I got to say it because I think it's going to change tomorrow. But my Buffalo Bills are 3-0. They've won all 3 games this season so far. And I don't want to get too excited because I fully expect that they'll blow themselves up in another day or two. But they're going to face the Patriots. I don't think anybody can beat the Patriots at this point. The Patriots are just an unstoppable machine. But that's a great start for the Bills. So kudos to my friends in Buffalo. And we'll see what happens the rest of the season. We'll hang in there and watch with bated breath. So, Tom, hey, a pleasure to have you. Let's do this again soon, and we wish you a blessed week and a good worship day tomorrow. While I'm on that, folks, let me just say, join us if you're in the neighborhood at Lifeway Church, 9:30 and 11:15 a.m., 2172 Berlin Turnpike. We're also live streamed, at least the message will be. I'll be speaking tomorrow on discerning God's voice. How do you know it's God speaking to you? We'll be doing that tomorrow. Great worship, great kids church, wonderful nursery staff, great food. The coffee's good too, guys. So join us if you're in the neighborhood, or join us online. LifewayCH.com or the Lifeway Church Facebook page. And we'll be back again next week here on Pondering for another episode from 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on Facebook or via podcast venue 24/7, 365 on demand. Comment, love our page or love our post, and share it with your friends, neighbors, and complete strangers. Let's not check our brains at the door, Christians. Let's not stick our heads in the sand, Christians. Let's stand for what's true, fight for the good of our nation, and then hope and pray that God gives us grace so we can continue the work that we've been able to do in this nation as Christians, and not see it just flushed. All right? God bless you guys. Stay in the Word. Keep praying. Keep pondering. We'll see you all next week. Bye for now.